Picking someone to take over a role from another actor is never easy, especially when the original performer drew praise for their take on that character. But recasting is often unavoidable, especially for sequels and remakes. Here are some more role replacements that ruined movies. Roger Moore and Sean Connery each made 7 appearances as James Bond, though many 007 fans will tell you that Connery is the only Bond. A CBS News poll concluded that 51% of Americans chose Connery as their favorite Bond, with Pierce Brosnan coming in a distant second. George Lazenby, the man who replaced Connery in the role for 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, received just 1% of the vote, which tells you everything you need to know about the gulf between these two actors. While critical opinion toward the film itself has softened over time, Lazenby's performance is still a bone of contention, inevitably compared to those delivered by Connery in the franchise's 5 previous entries. The Chicago Reader said that George Lazenby has so much reserve as James Bond that he makes Sean Connery seem almost frenetic by comparison. Reviews in the UK were just as critical of the leading man's turn as the British Secret Service agent, with London-based outlet Time Out calling him a stunning non-entity, fronting a film with no redeeming features. Following in the footsteps of Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor in the Terminator franchise was never going to be easy. She gave a performance so layered and compelling that even the most talented of actresses would have struggled to do the character justice.
I volunteered.
Why?
There's a chance to meet the legend, Sarah Connor.
The first to give it a shot was Lena Headey, who was cast as the titular heroine in the short-lived TV series Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Fox canceled the show after 2 seasons, leaving Headey's Game of Thrones colleague Emilia Clarke to carry the torch. 2015's Terminator Genisys was heavily criticized for using that old time travel chestnut to rewrite the beginning of the Terminator story to suit the filmmakers' purposes. The main problem, however, wasn't the infuriatingly muddled timeline, it was the casting. Veteran film critic Peter Bradshaw dressed down the whole main cast in his 1-star review for The Guardian, calling Emilia Clarke's take on Connor uninteresting. 1981's The Clash of the Titans attempted to give Greek mythology the Star Wars treatment, taking the story of Perseus and turning it into a sprawling epic. Director Desmond Davis went with Harry Hamlin in the role of Perseus, a son of Zeus, who in legend beheads the Gorgon Medusa in order to save his beloved Princess Andromeda from a giant kraken. Hamlin remains active in the industry, though he's still arguably best remembered for his turn as Perseus. The same cannot be said for Sam Worthington, best known as the star of James Cameron's budding Avatar franchise. Director Louis Leterrier entrusted the Australian with the lead role in his 2010 remake, though his choice was called into question when the negative reviews started to pour in. Worthington's earned his share of acclaim over the years, but the Titans remake is one release he most likely wouldn't mind leaving off his resume. QuickFlix's Simon Murado questioned how Worthington had ever managed to become a Hollywood actor after watching his performance as Perseus, in which he does nothing but glare. His battle speeches are neither rousing nor particularly intelligible. Despite its name, 1984's Friday the 13th Part 4 The Final Chapter was far from the last installment in this long-running horror franchise. In fact, 8 more films have been made since the so-called Final Chapter, though the one that directly followed it marked a major drop-off in quality. Part 4 has been described as one of the last really excellent horror romps that focus on character, dynamic, and family. Felix Vasquez of Cinema Crazed praised Corey Feldman for his standout performance as young Tommy Jarvis. Feldman went on to make a name for himself in The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys, though before he did, he reprised his Friday the 13th role in 1985's Part 5, A New Beginning. Unfortunately, he only appeared in the prologue, and a time jump meant he was replaced by the painfully dull John Shepard. Teenage Tommy was static compared to his younger self, though Shepard shouldn't shoulder the blame entirely. Some blamed what they called the ham-fisted directing of David Steinman, while James Kendrick of Q Network argued that the gory antics are so restrained by the insistence of the MPAA rating system that the film feels like it was edited with one of Jason's bloody rusty weapons. Wesley Snipes rejected the opportunity to return as Willie Mays Hayes in 1994's Major League 2 because he had become a movie star in his own right by then. With the Cleveland Indians down a man, the filmmakers turned to Omar Epps. Director David S. Ward had worked with Epps on the program the previous year, which was a sports movie following the exploits of a college football team. The big difference between the two films, however, was that the program wasn't meant to be funny. Epps didn't have a background in comedy, and it showed in his timing. Even those who didn't think the film was all that bad admitted that Omar Epps taking over for Wesley Snipes was a complete bomb of a decision. Bad all around. Veteran film critic Mark Kermode summed up 2015's The Transporter Refueled with a single question. What exactly is the point of a Transporter movie without Jason Statham? When it was revealed that Ed Skrein was to replace Statham as Special Forces op turned private driver Frank Martin in the fourth Transporter film, questions were raised about the former's ability to carry the franchise forward. Though the Transporter films didn't exactly change the action movie landscape, they benefited from Statham's presence, athletic prowess, and combat skills. His replacement lacked that experience, and it showed. Skrein began taking classes in various martial arts disciplines as he prepared for both The Transporter Refueled and his role as Ajax in Deadpool, but even he acknowledged that he was way behind many of his peers in that department. He told the BBC, "I'm very respectful and realize I'm not going to be able to do things meant for 10 or 20 years of training." The action in The Transporter Refueled was ultimately limited by the new star's fledgling abilities. Ed Skrein's one and only outing as Frank Martin was a commercial and critical flop that left the Luc Besson-produced franchise dead in the water. Rooney Mara took the role of androgynous computer hacker Lisbeth Salander, starring opposite Daniel Craig in 2011's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. When the 2018 sequel, The Girl in the Spider's Web, was announced, fans of David Fincher's critically acclaimed first film were a little disappointed that both Mara and Craig had been recast, and so was Mara. She told Yahoo, "I was hopeful to come back, but they decided to do a different thing. It was always a character I wanted to revisit, but that's not what happened." Sever Gudnason replaced Daniel Craig, while Claire Foy stepped into the pale, pierced skin of Salander. Unfortunately, she didn't look comfortable in it. At the time, she was receiving acclaim for her turn as the young Queen Elizabeth II in The Crown, but Foy couldn't pull off Salander's cold eccentricities with the same poise as her predecessor. Critics were by and large unimpressed with her version of the goth hacker, with many questioning why she was chosen for the part. The Observer's Wendy Ide said, "Much as I admire her, Foy is miscast here. She's just too empathetic for a role that requires an almost reptilian lack of emotion." IndieWire's senior film critic David Ehrlich called her both terrible and terribly miscast. The first RoboCop stars Peter Weller as the titular cyborg. He roams a dystopian, crime-ridden version of Detroit, mercilessly dealing with lawbreakers. Weller reprised the role in RoboCop 2, but turned down the chance to play him again in a third movie. Producers needed a replacement, and their hearts were apparently set on a little-known actor named Robert John Burke. In a 2015 interview, Burke said, "In God's great earth, they thought I was the only actor who could do it. I don't know why. I think physically I poked like Peter Weller, and I had also had extensive karate training, pantomime training, and body training, and I fit the suit." Unsurprisingly, handing the lead role over to the relatively inexperienced Burke just because he kind of resembled Weller didn't work out very well. He may have looked like him in the suit, but as the New York Times said in its review of the box office bomb, Burke is lacking his forerunner's tongue-in-cheek glint of authoritarian machismo.
"You have the right to an attorney?"
What is it?
From his delivery to the way he moved, Burke just wasn't as convincing as RoboCop. As Empire noted, he appeared to be a lot less comfortable with the hardware. 1988's Big is often cited as Tom Hanks' breakout movie, but he actually announced himself as a potential star some 4 years earlier in Ron Howard's fantasy rom-com, Splash. Hanks plays Alan Bauer, a young man who returns to the spot of what he believes was a near-death hallucination to discover that the woman he saw in the water the day he almost drowned is indeed real. Alan falls for Mermaid Madison and ditches his life on land to live under the sea with her in a goofy yet undeniably feel-good ending. It's a beloved movie, though the same cannot be said about the obscure made-for-TV sequel, Splash 2. Helmed by writer, director, and actor Greg Antonacci, the highly forgettable and completely unnecessary Splash 2 brought Alan and Madison back to dry land, totally ignoring the fact that the government wanted to lock her up in a lab in the previous installment. Todd Waring took over as Alan Bauer, but despite his best efforts, he lacked the everyman charm and comedic timing that was abundant in Hanks. FilmFad said in its review of the sequel, "The less said about the actors replacing Tom Hanks and John Candy, the better." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.